You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building, Miss Angela Rye. Welcome back.
AR-15.
No violence. I'm happy to be here.
Can we move this so I can see
now?
Envy
You don't want to see me this morning. You want to say good morning.
Envy wasn't talking to Angela because Angela didn't tweet about his single. Text your number.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Angela.
Yes,
ma'am. I start off asking you about everything that's going on in Houston right now with Harvey. A lot of people don't know if they want to help, where should they donate money? Because we hear all these stories about, historically we've donated to these different foundations and it hasn't really helped us. What do you think people should do, and how can you get the right information on where you should be donating?
I love that question because I think it puts Donald Trump right in the crosshairs. I'm sure many of you have now seen that, as soon as the hurricane hit, Donald Trump was saying things like, oh, they're going to be okay. They'll be just fine. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Whereas our former president, Barack Obama, shared information on how people could donate, how they could volunteer, ensuring that you're giving to the Red Cross and following those platforms. There's a senator in the state of Texas by the name of Rodney Ellis that sent out a robust email, and I'm happy to send it to you all, with a bunch of different places where people can take shelter, as well as places where folks can donate. I'm encouraging people to ensure that their donations are actually getting to victims of the hurricane, folks who have been displaced. And for that reason, I would wait another 24 to 36 hours to make sure you're seeing places that have been vetted. I know CNN has also vetted some volunteer organizations and places where you can donate.
Now,
That's interesting you say that.
Hold on, Trump reversed regulations now, right? So now it's something that Obama did is going to make it very hard for people to get their stuff back together, correct?
So, yes, one of the things that I think is important for us to recognize, Donald Trump, as a businessman, is used to trying to move things out of the way. And I think he doesn't always think about what the absolute ramifications and repercussions could be. So one of the things he recently did, just a few days before Hurricane Harvey hit land, was undoing or signing an executive order to get rid of flood standards that Barack Obama put in place for infrastructure. So you think about bridges and roads that may need to pass a certain muster to ensure that they could withstand this type of damage. He's now moving that out of the way so the project can move faster, but moving faster doesn't mean it's safer, and it definitely doesn't mean it could withstand a hurricane. So that's just one of the things most recently that he's done. There's also a member of Congress named Jeb Hensarling, who's the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee in Texas. He's right now pushing amendments to the National Flood Insurance Program, which would make premiums higher. And it's stupid because he's basically targeting his constituents, using this as an opportunity to say, see, we need adjustments. But if people aren't clear about the adjustments he's pushing, they may think it would provide relief. And it's actually going to make it more challenging for folks who are impacted by the flooding as a result of the hurricane.
By a natural disaster.
That's right.
That there's nothing that they could do about.
That's right.
Why would you get rid of flood standards, though? Like, that don't even make any sense to me.
Because from Donald Trump's standpoint, it would be a project that will move quicker. So anything that will help make the project move quicker, he's willing to move out of the way, even if it means making that project less safe.
Got you.
That's what I'm saying is the real issue with the flood standards that he's changed through this executive order last week.
Got you.
Now,
Now, what about this surplus military equipment?
So the other thing that he just did, this is the second most recent action. He's actually not signed an executive order yet, but I would just tell us to remember Ferguson, right? This is something that it was just the anniversary of at the beginning of this month. And you think about the images of police officers and that military equipment not talking to protesters, ready to fight them like they're in a war, right? Like the weapons they had. The full-on uniforms they were in.
Militarized.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if you're peacefully protesting, this is very antagonizing.
Absolutely. And then you think about the fact that just a couple of weeks ago, we had Charlottesville and other white supremacist-like rallies all over the country. So this equipment, him putting it back on the street says, I really am about law and order, and I don't care how you perceive the police, because part of that was Barack Obama saying, I don't want the perception to be that it's us versus them. This should be about a community policing kind of model, and he's undoing all of that. Jeff Sessions just made this announcement on Monday at the Fraternal Order of Police. So it's at their national convention. So it's very clear whose side they're trying to get on, and it's not ours.
So the question that I ask every time you come up here, I ask Queen Maxine as well.
Yes.
Are we any closer to getting rid of Donald Trump?
You used to say impeach. You
I
gave
used
up
to
on
say
that.
impeach. Now I'm just like,
Now you just want to get rid of him. You don't care how it happens.
Yeah, go. Just Kenny quit.
to get impeached.
I don't know.
Okay.
I know.
Queen Maxine said December.
Yeah, I don't know about December.
You changing your tune because at first you'd be like, yes, we're about to do.
I know,
Now
but
it's-
I just feel like everything. I was looking at it, I think, initially, like, if this was Barack Obama, right, he would have been impeached already. I think one promising thing that's happened, in addition to 2 members of Congress who've already filed impeachment articles, that's Congressman Al Green and Congressman Brad Sherman. That was a couple of months ago. There was recently a member of Congress by the name of Jerry Nadler, who's New York-based, who said, listen, it's time for us to introduce a censure bill based on his response to Charlottesville. So there are things happening. I just don't know if Republicans can move their partisanship out of the way to say these are just basic American standards. This is not right. And so for some folks, people say basic American standards is the reason why he's here and he's fine
Basic
and
ass people.
protected or that. But the reality of it is it's just really tough. Republicans run the House and the Senate. And until they can move their politics aside, we're going to continue to have these challenges. Donald Trump, his approval numbers alone, right? That should give them some element of comfort. But it doesn't, because he does things like, I was telling you, his first pardon just the other day was Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who many call Sheriff Joe, former sheriff of Maricopa County in Arizona. This guy was held in contempt for violating an order that prohibited him from using racial profiling, targeted people like, you're Latino, you're going to jail.
I'm black.
I'm not talking to you.
Oh, okay.
So defensive.
He's so
defensive.
He mad today.
Bro,
He
you
got
Dominican,
offended
Dominican,
too.
bro. You tired of getting mistaken for being Spanish? It is what it is.
Spanish is a language, but I
Yeah.
digress.
I tell them that all the time. Or you're from Spain.
They know what I mean.
No, but you need to do better. So,
Latino.
Anyway,
J-Lo,
Sheriff Joe,
A-Rod,
Sheriff Joe.
Gita.
Sheriff Joe.
Right.
So the point is, this is the one other standard. He had a tent city like jail. Many folks called it his version of a concentration camp in Mexico. In Arizona, but he treated Mexican people like they were in a concentration camp. He used to brag about paying more money for dog food, for prisoner dog food, than for prisoners themselves. This is Donald Trump's first pardon. He called him a real American hero and someone who's a protector of immigration and the border. Like, that's who we're dealing with. So I understand the question every time about impeachment, because I still can't believe he got there to begin with. Anyway.
Even
know
with
what?
North Korea, though, even with the whole thing where he basically said we would go to war on Twitter.
And all
That's kind
options
of
are
gotten
on the
lost in the
table.
past couple of
It
weeks, by the way.
has.
And North Korea just launched a missile over Japan. They
Over
said
Japan,
yesterday.
Yes, and now, so his response to that is that there's no option off the table. I think that the issue is, if tough talk doesn't result in tough action, we have a problem, because that means that they're easily able to retaliate against us just for the talk. The other problem is, and I think, frankly, the larger problem is, if tough talk does result in tough action, that means we have boots on the ground and folks who are risking their lives for his, idiot-like behavior. So there's no real win there. North Korea is definitely going to test Donald Trump. Why not? So is Russia. Russia's testing him all the time.
Well, let's go to the phone lines. Hello, who's this?
Good morning. This is Damien in Chicago. How are you?
Hey, Damien, what's your question for Miss Angela Rye?
Miss Rye, my question is simple. Since day one, the Trump presidency has been graded on a privilege curve, and we all know what I'm talking about when I say privilege.
White privilege.
Once
Don't
he
be afraid
gives
to say
his
it.
speech- Once he gives this speech in response to Hurricane Harvey, all of his indiscretion of the past month will be completely forgiven. I was just wanting your response to that.
I don't agree that everything that he's done will be brushed over because of his response to Hurricane Harvey. In fact, I think that he stumbled in his initial response, and I think only time will tell on the rest of it. There are a number of things that Donald Trump has done that makes things like hurricanes more challenging. For example, ignoring the fact that climate change is real. And I don't think there are many of us that will let him forget that. Now, if you're talking about within the GOP, within the Republican Party, that could perhaps be true. But I think there are a number of people engaged in the resistance movement that aren't going to let him move past or brush over many of the things that he's done wrong so far in his very brief presidency.
And you was telling me something about flood standards. What is that?
Sure. So we can get into all the other topics.
Oh, we have to do it now then.
Oh, okay.
Hello, who's this?
I thought about that though.
Hello.
Hello?
Hey, who's this?
This is Preston, DJ.
Hey, what's up, bro? You have a question for Angela Rye?
Yes, first I want to say good morning to the Breakfast Club.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Have a productive day. And Miss Rye, my question to you is, are you going to go for political office? And if so, can I run with you?
Oh, God.
So how about you run and I'll watch? I don't believe that running for office is my calling, but I appreciate the constant encouragement, and I will continue to use my voice to inform the process and talk to you all about good candidates who are up and coming or folks who are currently in elected office. For example, on my podcast coming out, there's a gentleman by the name of Wes Bellamy who is the vice mayor of Charlottesville and is doing some amazing work. So I'll continue to use my platform to lift up those folks. But that is not my calling.
How do you know that's not your calling?
Because I said so.
Can I say something though?
No.
I've been following you for a minute now, and you're very intelligent, and you speak for us. Why not represent us?
Because you want me to be all the way real with you?
I want you to be all the way real with me because you've always been.
You got a
good.
felony charge or something.
No, that ain't it. Nice try, DJ Envy Trump. But that's not it. So, no, the reason for it is elected officials don't make enough money. I want to do things in the community from a philanthropic standpoint. I want to continue to help support my family. And elected officials just don't make enough money for what I need. Now, for some other folks, it is, it works. And I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be restricted to saying something a certain way or doing something a certain way. I'm raw and unfiltered for the good, the bad, or the ugly, or the indifferent.
Can I ask you something, Angela?
Now, hold on. That could be misconstrued. Because people will see that and be like, "Oh, Angela said she would never run for office because it's not enough money. She just doing things for money." But she said she
wants to do philanthropic efforts. In order to do that, you need money to.
I think that's right, and I can understand. People are going to misconstrue what I say anyway. Mm-hmm. So if you do, hell with you today. But I think the bottom line is, for what I want to do, I don't see how I can get that accomplished financially sitting in political office. I also think that, to be totally honest, based on what happened in the last election, I just need my faith restored in the system a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still don't want to run for office. I've just never felt a pull to that, and I think that some of us could relate to that. Like, maybe they say, "Oh, you should really tap dance," and you like, "Yeah, I don't feel like that's what I'm supposed to do."
Charlamagne tap dancing.
I ain't never tap danced in my goddamn life.
Shade.
I ain't never tap danced with a white man in my mother effing life.
Who said all
Okay?
that? You just took it somewhere else.
You damn right. And when you say tap dance to a black man,
Okay,
when you say
let's
tap
say
dance to a black man,
break dance. He's right. I just sent him to a post-traumatic stressful place. I apologize. He's right. My dad would have had the same reaction. Real talk. So my bad.
Hello, who's
Very
this?
offended.
Hello.
Hello. I would have too. I gotta be real.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hey, what's your question for Angela Rye?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking my call, and thank you for grinding like y'all do. My question is, let's consider a scenario where the Mueller investigation doesn't knock 45 out the box. What do Dems need to focus on headed into 2020? Where does their heads need to be?
You said the Mueller investigation?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, there was a special investigator or special prosecutor appointed to look into Russia, what happened with Russia in the election. And the question is essentially, if he doesn't find that Donald Trump, the sitting president, is guilty of any wrongdoing, and he is essentially cleared, what does that mean for Democrats going into 2018 and 2020? And what I would say to you is some of the most important things for them to focus on are the things that have been pillars of their agenda for some time. That would be health care. That would be economic advancement. That would be protecting voting rights and protecting the ways in which people are able to execute and exercise their right to vote. And right now, I think that there's a lot of discord in the Democratic Party, including a whole ongoing fight, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but an ongoing fight about what it means to discuss identity politics and whether or not you should be ignoring the things that bring us together. It's a big tent party for a reason. If you start trying to become Republican light, you're not Democratic anymore, and then we have another problem. Maybe there should be another party.
The discord scares me.
The discord should scare you. It scares me too.
This was the year for another party. Well, last year,
Absolutely.
I mean, I didn't
Black
think about
party.
it till after the fact, but last year was definitely the year for
Still
another
think
We
party.
didn't
about it.
anticipate a lot of things happening the way they happened. Now, I had a discussion the other day I had with somebody, and they were trying to tell me. I said I think that anybody who supports Donald Trump is racist. And I can't look at it any other way just because if you support the things that he's been doing, his policies, the way he talks about people, I feel like if you're a Donald Trump supporter, you have to be racist.
Racist is a strong word, but I kind of concur.
I just
I'll
can't.
say extremely ignorant, woefully ignorant.
Yeah. So I think it kind of depends. Like I'm one of those people who believe that people of color can't be racist because you're not tied to any type of ability to systemically oppress others.
What if your lips ashy white and you black, like Paris Denard?
Can you not do that about Paris today? Can you not? Anyway, he has like a personal thing with Paris. But I think that I agree with you that results in the type of ignorance and bigotry and hate-filled violence, right? Like you're basically giving all of that a rubber stamp. So I definitely understand the position and agree with it somewhat. I just wouldn't necessarily say that they're racist. I would say that they're supporting blatant racism, right?
Yeah, because I feel like people did vote for Donald Trump in the beginning, and a lot of people I would hope have changed their mind after seeing how some people thought, okay, well, I'm a businessman and I'm a businesswoman and I'm an entrepreneur, so this is going to be good for me. It'll be good financially. Oh, he's, created these businesses, these empires. But now you should look at certain things that he says and does and feel like, okay, this was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and I think actually the poll numbers now are indicating that people are starting to get there, right? His overall disapproval rating is almost at 70%. So there are, to your point, there are a lot of people who don't approve of his performance anymore. For a Republican to be under 75%, normally when you're within your party, you're in the 90s for approval rating. He's hovering between 65 and 70% within his own party. That's really bad. That's really bad.
Now, people, okay.
No, I was just going to say, I think that she's spot on.
Now, people got upset at you because you called for George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Robert E. Lee statues to be taken down.
So I didn't call for them to be taken down. What I said on CNN is that I don't care if they did come down. And my point is that I don't acknowledge former slave owners, former rapists of slaves, former beaters of slaves as heroes. I don't care who they were. I understand that's the first and the third president. And if you're going to acknowledge them for their role in being founding fathers in this country, cool. But also acknowledge that they are slaveholders. But yeah, I got dragged by Breitbart and the others for that.
Because because exactly that. People's like, oh, they did so much good. They were the founding fathers.
But what
and there would be
did
no
they do
America
good?
if
What
it
did
wasn't for them.
what did they do good?
They said they founded America, but I said, well, would a black
They
person want to
stole
live?
land.
Would a black person want to live under a George Washington America? Like, it
I
might have been good
wouldn't.
for y'all. You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly. And I think that that's the point. Like, we live in this, like, just like this warped sense of history. Like, just because it's written in a textbook doesn't mean that it's accurate.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's representative of what we know to be true. I remember
We didn't write those textbooks.
we did not write those textbooks, and in many instances we're written completely out of them. You know, there was someone who tweeted me that same day, and they were like, well, would you take down, an FDR statue because of Japanese internment? Yeah. Or at least acknowledge that Japanese were interned in this country. That's not okay. Like, I'm not going to give anyone a pass for oppressing people. That's not cool. Anyway.
Is there a budget that the president can use? Because he's spending millions of dollars on vacation. I mean, millions of dollars, Secret Service, millions of dollars that we need.
Yeah.
There's no budget. He can use whatever he needs, however he wants, for him and his family.
They have to find the resources. So you just mentioned the Secret Service. So you do know that Secret Service is way over budget. They're not able to pay people overtime anymore because of the number of family members they have to protect and the number of vacations that they've all been on, not just Donald Trump, although he's been on several. And as a result, it does put a serious strain on the overall federal budget. It's an issue that that the House is going to have to deal with as soon as they get back from recess, which is where I was going to start. All of this is happening, and we're still in August, which is congressional recess month. So they're not even back until after Labor Day, and all of this is happening. So they have a debt ceiling to address. They have the overall federal budget and how they're going to allot resources to the Secret Service. Because, yeah, he can't just spend without regard. He can, but it just puts us in a deeper deficit federally.
When you do have conversations with people like Paris Denard, right, how do they justify still supporting Donald Trump at this moment?
So Paris is not just justifying supporting Donald Trump. I think he actually is supporting his positions. We had, I think, a tense exchange on NPR the other day about the whole statues thing. For me, it's not just about statues. It's about what the statues represent, right? If we took down every statue in this country, that doesn't mean that statues of oppression would come down in people's minds. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden we be paid fair. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden mass incarceration goes away. So my issue is not just the defense of the statues, it's the defense of the representation of the statues.
Yeah, and the statues reinforce what people already think.
Yeah.
You can't make somebody feel like they're wrong if you got these statues sitting up there that say, well, we're still supporting
and
things.
certain of those memorials actually come out of taxpayer dollars, so we
They
finance
do.
them.
And I don't know if you all saw this, but they talked about how many of the Confederate statues were put up during the Civil Rights Movement to intimidate Black people.
Exactly.
Like, people don't even understand. It really wasn't there to, pay homage to, the Confederacy for whatever reason, despite the fact that that's treasonous, right? If they were fighting against the alleged Union, then why are you putting this up at a time where this has long been gone? It's no longer an issue.
So even if you can't tear down the symbols of racism and bigotry in people's mind, you can tear down the symbols of it.
You can. And I get, for me, that's not where I want to spend my energy fighting. Like, I want somebody to be working on it. For example, one of my former bosses, Congressman Benny Thompson, who's from Mississippi, was working to get the Confederate statues removed in the Capitol, the United States Capitol. They have to walk by those every time they vote, members of Congress. Like, that is the type of intimidation, and that it's a slap in the face. We would never, ever, ever, ever see statues of Nazis in spaces where Jewish people occupy.
Absolutely.
We would never see it. Anyway, it drives me nuts.
Anything else we should know?
No, I think that's enough.
Okay.
I'm drained.
We appreciate you for joining us, as always.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, even though you didn't say good morning at first.
I did say good morning. You just
Y'all not
walked
gonna
on by.
ask Angela about her new rumored boo or anything?
You got a new boo? Who's your new boo?
We gonna ask about your rumor, boo?
Oh, I love
I'm
it.
just saying it's in the notes.
It is.
I didn't
All
see it in my notes.
Is your
Is your rumor boo in the notes?
I ain't got it in my notes. My notes. Oh, I do see it in my notes.
See, I didn't make the notes.
I'm cool with
Alternative
Angela. I
facts.
ain't going there. So.
Good call.
Yes, you can wrap.
Envy's already
You can wrap the
in trouble
interview
this
now.
morning.
Well, there you have it. It's Miss Angela Rye. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.